Howdy ho, neighbors, and welcome back to the Broken Brain. This is your Monday mental health tip from me, Dwight, your host. And today I want to talk about having a crash versus proactively having some rest and relaxation, recuperation, regeneration. That last one is for the doctor from Doctor Who. So you're probably familiar with the idea that if you don't take a break, your body and brain will take it for you, and oftentimes not in the healthiest way, because you might experience a crash of one kind or another, physiological energy or, the mental, emotional energy, both, all, whatever. And oftentimes, when those crashes come, just like any kind of a thing that we don't plan on happening, we don't get to pick when it happens. And it will often happen in an inconvenient time. That's not a coincidence or any kind of galactic, deep, mystic judgment or whatever. It's simply because that's when we're tired. When we neglect our own health in that way, then we will get exhausted and crash at some point. Now, here's what we can do with a crash. We can't do much during a crash. In fact, when you experience it, the best thing to do is usually to try to do very little. Similar to a heavy depressive episode, you have to renegotiate with yourself what your limitations are going to be during that time. Often with a crash, it can be a shorter amount of time, but here's the other thing is we're kind of playing with fire because it can also be a long thing or can trigger a mood cycle. It can trigger a depressive episode that might last a longer amount of time. So pre-planned rest, relaxation, and those kinds of things is usually preferable. So now, what do we do with the crash, though, after it's over? If we make some kind of goal that I need to have proactive taking care of myself, then the crash can be a great place to mine information, data mine, if you will, from your crash. So, you go and analyze what happened. Two major components. One is what was leading up to the crash. Can I pick on a time where it was like, boy, I was pretty, I was getting pretty burned out here. Were there any times where that kind of spiked, or I noticed a time where it was like, oh my gosh, that's not good, or I need to rest, but I denied myself that, or maybe others told me. What was I eating? How was my sleeping? Was there any other activities that I was doing? Was I doing any things at the same time as each other? What kind of hours was my workday stretching into, and was that avoidable or not avoidable? Kind of just giving this overall forensic look where we interrogate the crash itself. The second part is during. Asking myself during the crash, what was it, if anything, that I felt some motivation to do? That can be very helpful, because if I crash and the only thing I feel like doing is fill in the blank and I can't get myself to do anything else, then that's actually a good prescription for some ideas of things I could do during the rest and regenerating process. Rejuvenation, I think, is actually the word I look for at that time, because that one was to everyone, not just the doctor. Close second to something that I was doing is something I wanted to do but lacked the energy. Because if it's like, well, I really would engage with this, but I can't even get, my mind together enough to read this book or play this game or engage with my family this way or whatever it is. That's just as useful pretty much information-wise. In fact, that's a good sign to say, here's something I should probably put into rotation in my life periodically. Okay, and that's the last part of this tip, is just the idea that periodic inclusion of rest and relaxation, even small bite-sized chunks, whether it's taking a couple hours early or getting some, proactive rest, knocking off the workday, rescheduling some work, doing a project a different day if I can here and there. Whatever it is that it works, we all have limitations that are economic, time, childcare, things like that. But getting really curious about where could I trim if I was gonna, let's say if I had to, if I was gonna have a crash tomorrow, what would I do to survive that crash? Okay. So just several different things there to kind of consider. And let's use the crash in order to give ourselves an advantage of building our health. Aha! So there you go. There's a tip that you can use. Hopefully a couple actionable steps in there as well. It is still, last time I checked, the month of January, and our highlighted charity this month is the White Bird Clinic. in Oregon, where they work hard every day as a nonprofit organization to provide dental, mental health, and other medical services to those in need who might not otherwise qualify, as well as providing mental health crisis services and supporting first responders and supplying people to help out with that as well, with that service. Go to whitebirdclinic.org in order to make your donation to there, to share, to learn more. Also, you can join the Patreon. If you join the Patreon this month, then 50% of your donation for the duration of your membership as a brainiac in the Patreon club, 50% of your donation will always go to the charity of focus in the month in which you joined, and you get the bonus materials as well. I mention this every episode, and it's important. It's one of the things that's become really important to the Broken Brain and the functioning of the podcast. Not only do the patrons help it to run, but even though it, provides 50% of the donation away from simply supporting the program, it's become a real joy and actually reinvigorated some of the work that I do with the podcast to be able to see the good that it's doing every month when I, log on to those different places. And now many of you have joined in those months to where I think there's only been one where we didn't have new members during that month. I might recycle that charity sometime. I'm not sure. But other than that, if it even was, I haven't looked that up to be sure of this, but I have the privilege of being able to send a few bucks here and there to the charities that we have highlighted for the last several months. And that was most of last year, I believe, that we started doing that. So that's been really great. So just know that you are helping. If you're not able to become a donor of the show, feel free to please support in any way you can as far as sharing the show with other people. You can also share the charity focus. Always a good thing to do. Appreciate y'all. And tomorrow there will be a brand new full episode, an interview with Chad Foster, who is a really interesting guy. He is the first blind individual to go all the way through the Harvard School of Business Executives. He also was a computer programmer and athlete who learned many of those things after losing his sight in his 20s, and also now works with organizations in changing and setting up good workplace cultures. So, and his talking about his book and also the principles that he's learned, getting to know how people work and things like that. You're going to really enjoy it. So that will be happening tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye, everybody.